Good morning. I just wanted to do a quick video to show you, to explain a few things about SA2, as it's a little bit complicated in assignment. So the idea of SA2 is that I'm calling it a text wrestling essay. Basically, it's a very common academic form called the summary response essay. So we're stepping up from essay 1, where you were writing about your own experience without having to look at any other sources, to, in this essay, dealing primarily with one source, and it's a source that I'm going to provide rather than a source that you find yourself. Primarily, I'll get into that. There is one additional source that you'll be looking for. So you have these 3 articles to choose from, one of the articles, so look them over, find one that is reasonably understandable to you and that you think that you would have something to add to. That's the summary part, and then the response part. So you're going to look at the essays briefly, pick one. I would scan it over first, look at the introduction and the conclusion, get a sense for the writer's style, see if the essay is divided into sections, see if you can, just get an overview about what it's about. Then you're going to go back and read it more carefully, taking notes, that is, annotating the source. If you'd like to print the source out, that would be, and you're a paper person, I think that works well for a lot of students. If you're comfortable annotating on a screen and you know how to do that, you can do that. You could copy the article into Word. If you're going to print it out, there is a site called Print Friendly that will format the essay for you. So it'll convert something to a PDF. You can copy and paste the URL here and it will format it so that you can delete photos and you can delete extraneous information that isn't part of the text itself. So you might want to play around with that. Let me know if you have any questions using that, and I can show you that in a little more detail. You're going to mark the article looking for both main points of the article that you might underline or write some notation in the margins to remind yourself what the part was about. I'd look for pieces of, chunks. How does the article break into sections? There may be I don't believe there are any section heads for these 3 articles, but there are some spaces with one of them between sections, and some of the other ones break into sections. If you'll just look at the paragraph focus, there's a shift, after a few paragraphs in several of them. So you're looking for the main points of the article and also for the response part of your essay. Keep track of what you're thinking of as you're writing the essay. This would probably be in the form of notation in the margin. Does it remind you of a particular, personal experience, something that you've read? Do you find yourself agreeing or disagreeing with the article? If so, why? Are there questions the article raises for you? Are there implications? So if this is true, what then can we do about it? There is a link here that shows different possible ways to respond to an essay. That link is here. So these are different ways to respond to a text. You do not have to use one of these. You certainly do not have to use all of them, but it gives you a range of the different sorts of ways you might interact and talk back and extend and temper and analyze the article. Okay, so let me go back here. All right, once you get the article annotated, then you shouldn't have to look back at the article. You should have, what I would do is take some notes. Use your annotations to sort of map out the different sections of summary that you find, and then think about the ways that you want to respond to the essay. You may choose one primary way to respond, or you may have several different responses. May have responses to different sections of the text. And then you're going to start writing. I would start by writing the summary. This essay is basically going to have two halves to it, half summary and half response, roughly. Usually the summaries are a little bit longer. These are fairly long articles, and your response may be a little bit shorter, but try to get some sense of balance between summary and response. The summary is the harder one of the two to do, I would say. I would not suggest waiting until Sunday night to start this. Hopefully you're well underway with reading and taking notes, and maybe you've started writing by now. So I would do the summary first. I'm thinking of about 1,000 words or so for a main essay. So as I say here in the summary, try to write a 400 to 500 word summary. I would think of that in terms of paragraphs, as maybe 3 or 4 paragraphs. It is very useful to break the summary into paragraphs so your reader can see. It'd be easier for the reader to follow the line of argument or the line of exposition in the article, rather than lumping it all together in one paragraph. So try to see if you can chunk the essay into sections so you can focus one paragraph on each section of the essay. Okay, so there's information here about how to start the summary. Include the title of what you're summarizing and the author's full name. This template here in the internet, and Sarah Gordon Argues, etc., gives you a example of the sort of thing you might use for the beginning of your summary. And then there's some basic information about summary that repeats some of the information that I gave last week, I believe. Then I would move on to response. Now, in the summary part, you remember your purpose is to echo back what the author is saying. So you should try to keep it objective. You should not get your own thoughts and feelings and prejudices into this summary. Try to objectively recount what the author is saying. So in the summary part, there's no place really for the first person. That you shouldn't be using an I, because you're focusing on what the author has to say, not what you think about it. When you move to the response, then is when you can start using I, because you're giving your feelings and thoughts and etc. About the essay. You want to have a clear signal that you're shifting from recounting the author's position to your own. And again, think in terms of aiming for maybe 3 paragraphs for the response. It may be one extended personal experience connection if you have some knowledge or experience with some of these food distribution issues. You might write about that. Certainly the Michael Pollan essay invites you to think about your experiences or what you observed with food during COVID. Okay, so that'll give you the bulk of the essay, the summary and the response. Now, there are a couple other things that I just wanted to highlight. One is that in addition to heavily relying on the article that I gave you, you also need to find at least one other source that you can use. This may well be used as part of your response. So if, for example, if the article raises a question for you, you could do a little Googling around to find an article that gives you some, helps you to answer the questions that you might have. If you find yourself disagreeing with something or agreeing with something, you might look for an article that gives you some additional support. You do not need to use this article very heavily. You just need to use it at least one place in your essay. This is just baby steps towards, a full research article essay where you're formulating your own question, finding your own sources, and using multiple sources to just get you to find one. I'll have some information once we start Essay 3. We'll look more carefully at quality of sources and some of the, how to use the research databases to find more authoritative sources, more credible sources. But for now, I'm not really focusing on the quality of this source. Try to find something that's reasonably, halfway decent, that's from an author where you know who the person is, that seems, reasonably credible, but it's not a point of emphasis in this essay. It's mainly about beginning to the process of finding sources and then using the information. Now, this response, one place you might use this response is in the response section. I do suggest here, when I'm talking about drafting, that you also, prior to the response, that you write an introductory paragraph so you're not just jumping right into the summary, you're giving your reader some background information, introducing the topic. Doesn't have to be anything long. I would suggest writing that last, after you've written the summary and the response. So you might want to use your additional source that you found to give you some background information about the topic at hand, so that introductory information might appear in the introduction rather than in the response, and that's fine. The other thing you're going to need for the essay is a works cited. There was some basic information about a works cited on the assignment for last week. We'll be going into this in more detail for essay 3. So we're just really starting the idea of how you cite sources. So do the best you can on the rough draft. If a lot of people are having problems with getting the works cited done for the rough draft, I will give you some more information about that before you have to do the final draft. At the very least, put the URLs for the 2 sources. So your works cited will have a minimum of 2 sources, the article that I gave you, as well as the article or web page, whatever that you find yourself. You may use more than one. You may look for or use more than one of your own sources, but you're required to use at least one. So as I said, do the best you can on the works cited, and we'll touch up some of the loose ends as you're working on the final draft for this essay next week. Okay, so if you have any questions, feel free to post them on the blog or email them to me, and I'll try to respond as soon as I can. And then this rough draft is due Sunday night. Again, if you haven't quite finished, the summary as I said, is the hardest part. So if you find it taking you a long time to get that done, and you haven't quite fleshed out the response as much as you'd like to, feel free to post what you've got. You might make some notes about what you want to put in a response. You might include a link to a source that you found, but try to get as much as you can posted by Sunday night, and then we'll set up peer reviews for the beginning of the week, and the final draft will be due a week from Sunday, which would make that about the 20th, 21st, something like that. So we're speeding up a little bit now. We have 2 more essays to get through for the end of the semester. So this course will start to take a little more time maybe than it has up to now. Okay, good luck. I'll look forward to seeing your drafts in a few days.